Hello and welcome to City Corner, an ongoing program where we talk about what's happening in our community. Today's program is a special one because we are talking about the construction of our new City Hall. Hello, I'm Hollie Logan, and joining me today is Parks and Public Facilities Director Joe Schiessl. Welcome, Joe.
Hi, Hollie.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Glad
you
to be
bet.
here.
So today we're talking about the new City Hall
Yeah.
here in Richland. We recently had a groundbreaking for the new site and the new building. Can you provide a status for us on where we're at with the new City Hall?
Yeah, I literally just came off the project site and put my jacket on quick so I could be presentable for today. But yeah, so we're making good progress. We have our hole for the basement has been excavated.
Okay.
And we're putting concrete forms down, and we should be pouring next week.
Oh,
so
wow.
the foundation for the basement will begin next week in terms of the concrete pour. So that kind of in the construction world, that means we're going vertical, which is a neat thing.
Nice, building up. So, and the new site is on the corner of Jadwin and Swift Boulevard, correct?
It is, yep,
Okay.
right at the northeast corner of that.
Okay, great. So this new City Hall is part of the overall Swift Corridor project. Tell us a little bit about this development vision and provide some history behind how we got to the new City Hall and the existing City Hall.
Yeah, you know, the city over the past couple of decades has been really responsible in terms of its urban planning process. And you know, we have long-range vision plans for a lot of areas in town. And we've spent a lot of time thinking about what our downtown ought to look like and what the future of the central business district is. And as part of that central business district strategy, about 15 years ago, the City Council put in place what they called the Swift Corridor Plan. And the neat thing about that plan is that the land ownership along Swift Boulevard between about, you know, the city swimming pool and the river is all institutional or local government or federal or our friends.
Right.
And
great partners.
Yeah. And so we found a group of willing partners and property owners that shared in our vision to make this portion of the central business district more lively and more urban, have more services for citizens, and just provide more things to do, goods and services.
Right.
And so those partners are Cadillac and the private market. We've sold some property along the Swift Corridor, the federal government, be it the GSA or the Department of Energy, and ourselves. And so we've seen investments in the library. We renovated that. We expanded the size of the pool. Cadillac, of course, has built a beautiful 10-story tower that is serving the region.
Right.
Fantastic facility. And then the private market has stepped in, and we now have, you know, a Jimmy John's and other places to eat and some other professional services. And for a long time, you know, that 15-year planning horizon, the city has been thinking about a city hall. But, you know, it wasn't our time yet. It wasn't our turn. And now some things have lined up, and the age of our buildings have finally reached the point where we're investing too much in our buildings for the benefit that we're getting out of them.
For maintaining them.
Yeah, for maintaining them.
Right.
Yeah. So it's time now, and so a couple of years ago we put all the financing in place to do the project, and the council again was very conservative, and for example waited until we paid off the debt for the city's shops facility.
Okay.
So that debt's been paid off. The mortgage is off the books, and now we own that property outright. And we're using the revenue that we're using at that site to service the debt to help us with the City Hall project.
Okay.
And then there's an additional electric utility occupation tax that was passed a couple of years ago that contributes to the rest of the funding.
Okay.
But it's been a long time coming, and our partners have been so great to work with, and they have developed some amazing projects.
They really have, not to mention the CBC.
Oh, yes.
Health Sciences building there too. And
I failed to mention that one. It's been a great project
right,
too.
Yeah. It really helps to fill up that whole corridor there, and there's just a lot of opportunity. It's exciting. So the existing facility was built in 1958, correct? Yes. And so, as you said, the maintenance and maintaining these buildings is starting to be really expensive for the budget.
It is, and there's 3 buildings coming into one, which is another cool thing.
Right.
So it's the City Hall building, the one where you pay your utility bills in, of course, and it's the building that council holds their meetings and the public's most familiar with. The building next to the current City Hall is called the City Manager's Building, as you know, and that's a little newer building. It was built in the late 70s, and it's showing its age too. The construction technique and the quality of construction isn't quite as high as we would have liked to have seen, and so it didn't have the longevity as some of these older 1950s buildings. And then the third building is what we call the Development Services Building. It's on Northgate, behind the Federal Building, and as citizens know, that's where you go to get a building permit,
right,
or to meet with the electric utility. So if you're building a fence over the weekend or something, you probably pay a visit to that building.
right.
That building was an old federal building that the city acquired, and it was built in the late 40s. And so that building, for example, is a pour-in-place concrete wall building. It was built as a bunker.
Right, government era.
Yeah,
right.
And all of the plumbing is internal to those concrete walls, and it's a galvanized steel pipe. Well, we've been sending TV cameras down those pipes, and most of that piping has corroded to the point where it's just the concrete void in the wall for sewer flow, and that's obviously not a good situation.
Right.
And in order to replace that plumbing, you're looking at, it's a solid concrete wall. And it's a very, very difficult building to renovate, not to mention the HVAC systems and the regular plumbing and the electrical. The City Hall building faces all of those challenges as well. It has an original boiler in the basement that heats the building that is 20 years past its design life cycle.
Right.
And that's $1 million project that we don't want to invest in that if we can avoid it. So it's, they're old buildings that have lived past their useful life. Rest assured, we looked at all of the numbers in terms of renovating those buildings versus building new. We even looked at some unoccupied office buildings.
Right. There was a question recently posed on our social media about what about some of the surrounding buildings or properties that remain vacant? How have we considered some of those? Yeah,
we took a long and hard look at a vacant office building on Jadwin Avenue. It's a building that's been vacant for quite a while. It would have had the right square footage for City Hall. It was a little over 50,000 square feet. We need about 40. So it would have provided an opportunity for some growth. We hired an architectural and engineering firm to go through the building and provide an evaluation and a cost estimate for us. And at the end of the day, what we determined was we could build a new building to perfectly suit our needs for the same price as it would take to renovate an older building, and we'd have to sort of shoehorn ourselves into someone else's floor plan.
Right.
Yep, so we're getting a custom designed City Hall that'll serve the business needs of the city for many, many years to come.
Right, and just the idea that it will provide more of a one-stop shop for our customers versus having to get their services through the 3 different buildings that we are currently in.
You've seen these maps that every building hands out. You know, well, now that you've gotten your utility bill, if you want to build a fence this week, you need to go that way.
That's right.
And we're sending customers, several blocks in some cases to get their next service, and we just want to be as efficient and as customer friendly as we can, and so getting all those facilities under one roof will be a real advantage.
Yeah, I agree. So this will be the city's second design build project.
Yeah.
The first was Fire Station 74 up near the shops off Queensgate and Dupertail. So what are the advantages of the design build process?
Yeah, in a nutshell, design build it's a different way to contract for a job, and it really makes us more like the private sector is what it is. And so for decades, public government has been hamstrung on the kinds of contracts that we can let for public jobs. And typically that has been, to go hire an architect, and the architect draws, a visionary project, be it a city hall or a fire station or whatever it is. And then that project goes out for bid, and then we are obligated by state law to select the low bidder. And that process has worked for a very long time, but it's not an efficient process. So separating the designer from the builder is an inefficiency in the process. And so there's, the private market has known for a very long time that getting the designer and the builder in the same room and on the same team saves time and money.
Right.
And so it's only been just recently that smaller governments like ours have had the ability to use design-build contracting. So like you say, the fire station was our first experience with that methodology, and we believe we saved $750,000 on that project by using that. And on this project, this is a design to a budget, and it's a lot like your family's budget. You know what you can afford for your house, and you go out and you find or build a house that would fit your budget. That's essentially what we're doing with City Hall. We know what we can afford for City Hall, and we've designed a project to fit that budget. So in this case, I wouldn't necessarily say that we're saving money on City Hall, but what we're doing is we're getting more project. So if it were not for design build, I don't know that we could get the size of the facility and get all of the departments under one roof that we're achieving under this project.
Right, and then the quality materials to go along with that.
Yeah.
You know, if you're experiencing overages, that requires you to cut back on that. So if you have all of that up front, it's more cost effective. That's great. So with the new City Hall, what's it going to look like, and what departments will the facility house?
Yeah. So the look and feel of the project is really important, and we've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I'm super invested in it, as is the community and the council. And so as we're exploring this project, you know, we had lots of conversations with City Council, and they have so many supporters in the community, and they have a lot of feedback, and so the council has a good pulse on what the community wants in this facility. And what they told staff to deliver was, you'd think it would be incompatible, right? So what they said was, it has to be a building that looks like old Richland, it feels like old Richland, but it also has to be modern and look and feel new. And so we, you know, took that as our direction and scratched our head a little bit and pondered a lot and hired the right team, right? That was a good process too. And gave that opinion. And we have a rendering on the site. There's a project board out there. And what you see when you see the architectural renderings is a building that is mid-century modern architecture, which is good old 1950s Richland, that's our base, right? That's where we came from. So it has mid-century 1950s looking architecture, and there's kind of 3 building pods on the facility, and the pod in the middle, the one that connects the two together, is kind of this glassy, modern, looking to the future kind of element to the building. And so we've married the old and the new, and we've done it in such a way where the mid-century modern architecture is what it is, and it's not watered down to be anything else, but it's sort of connected with this modern piece in the middle, and it's a stunningly beautiful structure. And the neat thing is we're doing it with some pretty simple construction techniques and use of materials that are not overly expensive, and so we're getting a really cool and durable building within a really nice budget too. And so we're being conservative while we're also being respectful for some really nice architecture.
Right. The idea of applying some artistic kind of elements to it as well is always a bonus.
Yeah, and it's built to last. It's the exterior materials are concrete, brick, steel, and glass. I mean, those are all just really durable, authentic materials that will just be in some very basic colors, and it's something it's not trendy. It should and is intended to look relevant as we move into the future.
A classic design.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's great. So the departments that will be housed there, you spoke a little bit about it, but here we will have the customer service department and permitting. Any really customer service facing departments will be in one kind of core area. So anytime a customer comes in, they'll have that direct access.
That's right. And we're also instituting an information desk. And you can come into the building a couple of different ways, and no matter which way you choose to walk in, you'll be faced almost immediately with this information counter, this information desk, and it'll be staffed by an individual that will be ready and smiling and will point you to any direction you need to go.
Right.
Most of all of the bottom floor, with the exception of some back of house staff areas, will be open to the public. And then, of course, the downstairs is where the council chambers will be.
Right.
And that will really be a stunning room. It'll have a feature where, I mean, you've been to some council meetings where they got really busy, right? Yeah. And it's either standing room only, or if it's not that, we have in the lobby behind the closed door television monitor out there, in a crowd either standing or sitting on a half a dozen seats watching the meeting on television.
Yeah, the overflow isn't real conducive for.
It's not.
Yes.
And the citizens that are participating in the meeting in the lobby feel disconnected from their government, right? They're behind a closed door, they're watching on a television. And we wanted to correct that because we don't want citizens to participate in their government that way. We want them to be full access and have direct line of sight and have and to hear without listening to the television. And so we've designed some sliding doors in the back of the chambers that'll open up, and they open up into the lobby, this nice glassy piece that connects the two other building pods, and we'll have some audio out there, and we can stack chairs in the lobby, so we've grown our city council seating by a third in the chambers themselves, and then we have this overflow area, and we could probably put like 100 people out in the lobby itself, and so we'll be able to accommodate almost any of the largest meeting that you could ever think of.
That's great.
Yep, and then when you're in the overflow, and when you're in the overflow, you'll feel like you're part of the main meeting. So it'll really be a nice space.
That's great. Speak to the technology that will be available, for example, within the council chambers. And, you know, we're looking a few years out, so how are we staying on top of all of the new technology that's coming out? It changes consistently.
Yeah, technology is always changing. So we'll have nice, for display of material, for example, digital display of material, we're going to have monitors in conference rooms and big monitors in the council chambers so the public can easily see what's being displayed, handouts or graphs or charts to the city council. All the audio is going to be really high quality, so when you're in those meetings, you'll hear crisp and clean the audio. We're very sensitive to that. There will be a buried audio enhancer in the floor, so those that are hearing impaired and they have compatible hearing aids, they can walk into the council chambers, they can sit down, and they can participate in the meeting just as usual, right? So there's no request for special listening devices or anything that's necessary. There's a lot of cabling that will be on the floor, a lot of wireless technology. So we're putting measures in place that should keep us relevant in the future.
That's great.
Another neat thing is the building is fully accessible. So, the City Hall building that we're sitting in today is not accessible except for very small portions.
Right.
And we've put some business practices in place so that we can greet people that have accessibility issues, and we can deal with utility bills and whatever their need is. In this case, it's a flat surface all the way from the parking lot to utility billing into the council chambers. So it'll be a fully accessible building. We're really excited about that.
That's great because we do have it, like you said, now, but it's not always the most convenient for folks. So
that's right.
Yeah. And then we'll also have some elevators if you need to get up and visit our other departments. What other departments will be on the second floor?
Yeah, second floor will be Public Works.
Okay.
And so they have all of their engineering staff on the second floor, on half of that floor, and then the other half will be community development.
Okay.
So the planners and economic development and affordable housing programs. And we spent a lot of time thinking about which departments have good relationships, functional relationships with one another, and have grouped them together so that we could create some team unity and better communication between all those departments.
Better workflow as far as a project goes.
A lot more efficient, a lot of opportunity for collaboration.
Right.
So that'll, it's sort of a technical floor on the second floor. And like you say, there's an elevator up to the second floor. Because of security requirements nowadays, really the first floor is the one that will be mostly open to the public. But any business that needs to be transacted on the second or third floors can be handled with a staff escort, and it's all key badged, and that's not a problem. So we have plenty of conference rooms on the second floor to accommodate meetings of large and small. And then on the third floor is human resources. So anybody that's coming to the city to look for a job will have access to human resources up the elevator and up onto the third floor, or they might conduct some of their business downstairs. And then the executive suite, which would be the city manager and the assistant city manager and the risk programs and the city attorney various other executive functions on the third floor,
Mm-hmm.
other conference rooms, and then the finance accountants are upstairs. So finance is split between 2 floors, and you had mentioned customer service.
Right.
And that's, of course, where you pay your utility bill, get your animal license, and that sort of thing. But the accountants that keep all the spreadsheets tabulated the way they're supposed to be.
That's right, and accounts payable.
That's right,
and all of that, yeah.
Yep, they all live upstairs and have really good facilities for them to do their job. And I should mention that between all of the public and the, you might call them private or staff spaces, there is a difference and a drop-off in the level of finishes in all of those spaces. So, you know, I mentioned that we're being fairly conservative on the use of materials and budget on City Hall. So we're spending more attention on the public spaces, in the public bathrooms and the council chambers and the lobby. The level of fit and finish and quality materials will be higher in those spaces where the public can access.
Or it's higher use,
That's
probably.
right. Yep. Back of house areas and outside of conference rooms. You know, it gets a little more vanilla. It's functional. Everybody has enough space to do their job. And they, you know, everybody does their job so well already, but, you know, we're providing some new efficiencies in the building. But I sure wouldn't call it fancy.
Right.
Yeah.
But it fits the business need
does.
that's occurring within that space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing that you had mentioned before was the digital wayfinding. So as far as signage goes, are we considering putting some of those monitors around that direct people to the necessary departments that they need to go to?
We are, and as you know, we experimented with that in the community center last year, and it's been a huge success.
It has.
Yeah, so if anybody hasn't seen that in the community center, there's monitors behind the counter that display current activities and videos of parks and posters of special events that are coming up. And then there's a couple of additional monitors that point down hallways, identifying what classes or activities are happening down those hallways. And you know, it's government's just sort of getting into that game. Almost any fast food restaurant nowadays uses digital display.
They do, yeah.
Banks are all using digital displays. Hotels are using digital displays.
Right.
It's just a really good way to be able to provide custom messaging and provide really good directions, you know, with arrows and words to tell, you know, building users where their service might be within that building.
Right, and it's easily updatable.
It is,
so, yeah.
Yep. And then, you know, in case of emergencies, the broadcast system that can display fire alarm, alarming and sounds can display messages on those boards too. They could turn red and it could say,
oh, wow,
exit the building now or something like that, right? So it does have some emergency benefit as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So a lot of exciting things to look forward to with the new City Hall. In regards to the existing City Hall, what will become of the George Washington Way Swift Boulevard property here?
Yeah, that's the one part of the Swift Boulevard, Swift Corridor project I hadn't mentioned yet. It's another economic development opportunity.
Right.
So just like we sold property across the street from us here, and we have the Jimmy John's and Dupas Boomers, we see a similar opportunity at the current City Hall site.
Right.
So as part of our project budget, we will demolish the building and we'll prepare it for development. And I know our economic development team is already having conversations with council, and they're discussing the best marketing strategy for the property and the kinds of uses that council wants to see. So we're really hoping that we can, you know, lure in and attract, you know, some new retail opportunity or another restaurant, maybe an employer. You know, we don't know what that is yet. We're going to have to test the market and see what's out there. But it's sure a neat opportunity for us to be able to explore.
Yeah, I think it's exciting, the idea of being able to really take advantage of the waterfront and that kind of the walkable community concept with the Central Business District there and the park at John Dam Plaza.
Yeah.
So
it's a unique piece of property, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. So what are we looking at as far as the time frame for construction, demolition of this building? How far out are we for completion?
I don't have an exact month for completion date, but we're looking at the spring of 2019.
Okay.
So we're a little less than a year and a half away from moving into the new building. And of course, all the existing buildings will remain in place until that happens. We'll commission the building, which means getting all the HVAC running and all the furniture loaded into the space and desks and all that. And then we'll begin the process of moving people and computers and everything into the building. And then once the other buildings are vacated, then we can start the demolition process. And it's 3 months or so to demolish City Hall and get it ready for development. So no later than the fall of 2019, this site's ready to go.
All right, that's exciting. Overall, as we're getting ready to wrap up here, what do you want the citizens to know about the new City Hall, and kind of what's the main takeaway that you want them to take with them?
Boy, I think I would want to say that the citizens should be proud that the city has squeezed as much life as we have out of these old buildings.
Really?
And we have our own maintenance staff, and they're really diligent about preventative maintenance and corrective maintenance, and making sure that all of this 1950s equipment stays up and running. I mean, literally, this is the same original 1950s HVAC equipment in this building.
Wow, and that boiler last year gave us a little bit of a challenge, didn't it?
It's right there at the end, isn't it? Yeah. And so we've had to do some creative things to keep the building warm, and in fact, on a couple of occasions, we've even had to evacuate because it broke down.
Right.
So I think that's the takeaway, is that we really have driven the wheels off this car, and we've gotten our money's worth out of it.
That's true.
And the idea is that we're building another facility that can have the same longevity. So this is a 60-year building. We're building another 60-year building because this one needs to last.
Right.
So Richland has a really awesome legacy for building quality and effective projects, and we want to maintain that legacy, and that's what we're doing across the street. So it'll be a really nice project over there that should last well into the future. Up to 60 years is what we're looking at.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
And overall, what's the total cost implication for the new City Hall?
Yep, it's $18.5 million, and that's everything. That's Washington State sales tax, that's furniture, that's architectural fees, that's demolition of this building.
Right.
That even includes a very complicated land transaction with the federal government that had us paving the GSA parking lot that serves the federal building.
Yeah.
And we had to build a half an acre parking lot in a land exchange that literally took an act of Congress. So that $18.5 million is all in, that's everything. And so sometimes when you hear people talk about building budgets, well, it's this number, but that excludes X, Y, and Z.
Right.
That 18.5 is all in,
Right.
that's everything.
It includes change orders and everything that might come as far as changes go within
and
minor things throughout.
We're running a job here. We hope there will be no change orders.
Yep.
And so we're, but it's all in.
Thanks, Joe. That's all the time we have for today. If you would like to keep up to date on this and all the other Richland projects and programs, visit the city's website at ci.richland.wa.us or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Thanks again for being here, Joe Schiessl, and we'll see you next time.